What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out a tool that isn't meant for Gunpla, but I think has a pretty good use case for it. And it might be the most expensive way to get rid of nubs. I'm talking about the Phrozen Sonic Saber ultrasonic cutter. This tool is meant to help clean up your 3D prints, be it from resin machines or FDM machines. But by testing it today, we'll be able to see whether or not it'll work on Gunpla. And I have a good feeling it will. Without further ado, let's check it out. So I have used this already very lightly on some 3D prints just to make sure it worked, but I haven't used it on any Gunpla yet, so that'll be interesting. I put it back in the box as accurately as possible to give you a proper unboxing experience, so let's open it up. Starting off inside the box, we do get a pair of cut-resistant gloves. These are to help prevent injuries to yourself when you're using the tool. We have our operation manual as well as warranty information and stuff like that. Underneath the foam, we have the tool itself. I believe these came in protective bags, but I'm not sure. Going from left to right, this is going to be the main portion of the machine that sort of powers it. There's also a holder to hold the cutting portion, kind of like a soldering iron station. And this is the actual cutting portion that you'll be holding. There's a lot of warnings all over this tool, rightfully so, because as an ultrasonic cutter, this does cut things pretty easily. And as you can see at the tip, we do just have a standard hobby knife blade. So for the most part, all the tech is going to be in the handle and the power unit over here, but theoretically you should be able to use normal hobby knife blades. Over here we have our power adapter. It doesn't come with any other adapters for different types of outlets, so as far as I know, this specific power adapter is only for the US market, but I'm sure they have other power adapters included in other regions. And lastly, we have some additional hardware that comes with the unit. We have an Allen key, an extra screw, and two blade chokes right here to hold the blade. Alongside that, we get a ton of extra blades right here. 2 bags of them. Just roughly estimating without counting, I'm assuming there's going to be about 20 to 30, maybe even 40 extra blades that come with this. So I'll go ahead and put this box away and we'll take a look at the actual tool itself. So on the back, we have the port where we plug the power adapter in. After we do that, you'll see a red LED down here turn on. That LED just means there's power being supplied to the unit. It's still relatively safe to handle in your hands. It's not vibrating or anything. After turning it on, you do have to press this button. You'll hear a beep and a green light will turn on. That means that this handled unit is ready to be used. Once again, it's still not vibrating, so it's not going to cut things easily. And that's where the last button comes into play. Here on the handle portion, we have one more button and one more LED. As you can see, the LED is currently off, but when we press the button, it turns on. And when this LED is on, that's how you know that the blade is actually vibrating and able to cut things very easily, so be careful. Also, when you're using the blade, when you press this button on the handle, this LED will turn from green to blue. We also have a holder for the handle right here. This knob will help you adjust the angle at which it's at rest. It is reverse threaded though, so to loosen it, you turn it to the right, tighten it, you turn it to the left. On the bottom, there is a notch cutout that lines up with a protrusion on the handle. That'll keep it from rotating while on the stand, as well as from going too far into the holder. That way you don't damage the blade. A couple more things to note about this base. To turn off the machine, you just hold this button right here for 2 seconds, and you'll see the green light go away. While it's off, you can press the handle button all you want, and it's not gonna turn on. One other thing is if you use this for a continuous 5 minutes or longer to prevent overheating, the machine will automatically turn it off. You'll know this has happened because the LED on the right will turn from green or blue to orange. And if that happens, you just gotta let it cool down for a bit before you start using it again. On the handle itself, we do see that Allen screw that we got an extra of. If we unscrew this, that lets us take out the whole blade choke, as well as the blade itself. So to replace the blade, it's the same as putting this back together. Might be easiest to put the actual blade choke into the handle and then put the blade back in. One thing to note is when you tighten the Allen screw, you can either have it face this way, or you can turn it 180 degrees and have it face that way. That's kind of just a personal preference or maybe even a different scenario, whether you want to use it cutting downward or cutting upward. But for today, we're just going to have it in the same orientation, cutting downward. And lastly, you just tighten the Allen screw right here and it's back to normal. So right now I have the tool on and I can press the button, but it really doesn't look like anything's happening. Like even if you get really close, it doesn't look like the blade is vibrating at all. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. So make sure you're using caution if you use this tool. Just to prove to you that it is actually still moving when you press the button, I'll go ahead and press it against this screwdriver and you'll be able to hear the vibrations against the metal. So here I'm pressing against the screwdriver and you don't hear anything. But if I press the button, then press it against the screwdriver, you can hear kind of that metal grinding sound. And that's because this blade is moving super fast, much faster than our eyes can see, and that greatly enhances the cutting power. Try to imagine it like a kitchen knife, and you're trying to cut through a frozen block of cheese. Sure, you can brute force your way through the cheese, and it'll work eventually, but there's a lot more effort that you have to put behind the knife. Whereas if you do multiple passes with the knife, you'll cut a little bit of cheese at a time and eventually get through the whole piece. Well, what an ultrasonic cutter does is it does those multiple passes just in a fraction of a second. Matter of fact, Phrozen states that it makes 40,000 blade vibrations per second. Now, I don't have any practical way to measure that, so I'm just gonna have to take that at face value. But that's about all there is to the Sonic Saber. So the last thing I'm gonna do is put it to the test. Now, if you're here to see how this Sonic Saber does against 3D prints, I'm not gonna be doing that today because I don't run a 3D printing channel. Instead, we're gonna be testing it on this Full Mechanics aerial. And for today's demonstration, we'll grab some red parts, blue parts, and clear parts. Well, like a gray clear. So there's two ways I want to test this today. That's going to be one, our conventional method of cutting it off the runner and then trimming the nubs. The second way we're going to test is cutting it directly off the runner, right at the nub, to see if we can get a clean cut right from the runner. So first I'm going to cut off a red part, a blue part, and one of these clear parts. Clear parts are usually made of a harder material, so those will be interesting to see how it performs. I'm pressing the knife right up against it, and as you can see, it's not really going to be doing anything. You know what, I think maybe we should try it on just the runner first to see what we can do. Here you can see me pressing the knife right up against the runner. Nothing's happening. I mean, it's leaving some very small blade marks on the runner, but of course, it's just a regular hobby knife at this point. Now we'll press the button and then see if we can cut straight through. That was kind of crazy. What's even crazier is if you look at the edge of where I cut, it kind of looks like it melted away, almost as if this becomes some sort of hot knife. But realistically, it's just the friction of the blade vibrating back and forth so fast, generating enough heat to melt the plastic. So that is one thing you do have to look out for. But if you look at the cut in the runner itself, there is absolutely no stress mark in the middle of it. You can see on both sides, no stress marks at all. So I guess the only thing to do is to try it out. That worked just as well as I thought it would. So two things I noticed when cutting this. One, you don't have to use much effort at all. It really just glides right on through the plastic. And two, because the blade is moving so fast, it's pretty easy to mark the surrounding area. But you can see that there are some divots in some areas that I let the blade touch. And on one nub, it's even melted a bit because I let it touch too close to the rest of the part instead of the nub. But there are a few nubs where it did exceptionally well, to the point where you can't even tell that a nub was supposed to be there. So that is very impressive. Let's go ahead and test it out on a blue part and see how it does. You can even hear the blade vibrate when you're cutting it, and it's kind of like rubbing against something it shouldn't be. On the blue part, it did just as well as the red part. Same drawbacks as well, where you can see some of the areas where it has slightly melted and also been a little marked. One thing that I noticed more on the blue than on the red is that some areas where the nubs were, it actually leaves it very shiny. And leaving a nub mark shiny is good, especially when we're working with clear parts. So now let's check out how it does on one of those. Once again, it performed very well. I wasn't able to get as shiny surfaces as I did on the blue part, but there are very little to no stress marks. Overall, this thing is pretty fun to cut with. I mean, it literally feels like you're taking a hot knife and slicing it through butter. So now we're gonna try it for parts directly on the runner and see if we're still able to get a clean cut. Overall, not bad, but let me throw up some pictures for you guys to take a closer look. Once again, it didn't take much effort to cut the gate. However, one thing that you'll see on all of these parts is that the area around the nub was much more easily melted compared to when it was off the runner. Now, I'm not going to get into the physics of all of it, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with the fact that when the parts are on the runner, the part itself and the gate don't really have any room to move, so it seems like there's a much greater buildup of friction at the point that you're cutting at, which of course means more heat to the area, which leads to melting the part. If you do end up using one of these, I've got 2 tips for you. 1, don't cut the part when it's still on the runner. You're gonna end up with melted nubs. And 2, it seems the easiest way to cut for me is to apply a little bit of pressure on the nub with the blade and then press the button, and the blade should glide right through. But overall, it is a very simple to use tool. It definitely does have a use case with Gunpla, but with the price tag being over $200, I don't necessarily think this is a tool you need to add to your arsenal. However, if you are a 3D printer and can find a dual use case to use it with your 3D prints, it might be a worthwhile investment. But overall, it's a pretty great product between Phrozen and Madworks, if you didn't know. And compared to other sonic cutters on the market, I think the price is pretty justified. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Is this something you'd be willing to pick up? Or is it just something else you're glad someone else paid for, that way they could test it? But that concludes the review of the Phrozen Sonic Saber. Hope you guys learned something from it. If you do want to pick it up, I'll have it linked in the description below. Also in the description, you'll find an invite to the Discord, my different social medias, as well as a link to my merch store. So if you want to pick up a shirt that I designed myself, you can find it online through that link. Once again, thank you everyone for watching. Hope you have a great rest of the day, but in the meantime, pick up a kit and start building.